Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from the Frontier. Thank you for stopping by. I'd like to first thank Bonnie Tunya of CNBC Africa for having me on his gig this morning. He's always a great interviewer, and we talked about many things: the bifurcation between the Nairobi NSE20 and the Nairobi All-Share, foreign investors returning, which I've been speaking about over the weekend when I was talking about how emerging markets had come back into flavour. So thank you, Bonnie. Macro thoughts, Mr. Yen says, look out, 90 is coming. And you'll remember on January the 11th, I said one of my conviction trades for 2016 is to buy the yen against just about everything. And I'd also had a target of 95 and 105, and obviously we got through 105. Home thoughts, he jumped from 25,000 feet without a parachute and survived. Pretty incredible and brave individual. I am rereading Vidia's Shadow by Paul Theroux. And this is a biography of Naipaul's friendship with Theroux. Vidia would be funny and provocative, teasing and twitting people for his own enjoyment or to obtain information, and using archaic names such as the Gold Coast, that's Ghana, in order to outrage liberal sentiment. And then a few quotes from Naipaul that I like. The only lies for which we are truly punished are those we tell ourselves. Look, boys, it ever strike you that the world's not real at all? It ever strike you that we have the only mind in the world and you just thinking up everything else? Like me here, having the only mind in the world and thinking up you people here, thinking up the war in all the houses and the ships and them in the harbour. That ever cross your mind? Anybody can be decisive during a panic. It takes a strong man to act during a boom. That's from A Bend in the River. Then I couldn't resist this: 50 years of decadence at Ibiza's Pasha. But what's next for the party island? And then finally, home thoughts. I like the lone eye to the right, even though it's outside my focal plane. It ironically grabs our focused eyes. This is David Yarrow. Trump calls Clinton the devil. And my conclusions is he's either going to spontaneously combust, and if he does not, he stands a 50-50 chance. Goes back to my Brexit article when I said what is resonating more is an apocalyptic view of a dystopian future. And I like this photograph of Donald Trump. Bernard, bring round my tweeting coat. Brazilian police freed the kidnapped mother-in-law of Formula One boss Bernie Ecclestone. It was probably the biggest ransom call ever made of a son-in-law. The Reserve Bank of Australia cut rates to a fresh record low of 1.5%. And the Aussie dollar has surged to 75.77 after a brief reaction lower. Japanese bond auction draws lowest bid cover since February. Yields have spiked, and the 10-year yield very close to turning positive, quite a turnaround. Let's move on to the currency markets. The euro dollar, 111.95, touched 112, dollar index, 95.70, Japanese yen, 101.71, Swissy, 0.9672, the pound, 132.44, and that's trading higher, notwithstanding a massive short position. That's probably why it's trading higher. Aussie, well, this morning was at 75.40. On the immediate news of the rate cut, it's now at 0.7577. India rupee 66.755. South Korean won 1107.96. The Rial 326.36. Egyptian pound 885.25. And the South African rand is around 14 figure. Speculators amassed their biggest bets against sterling. On record, I&M futures data show and that's probably what's driving the pound higher ahead of the announcement that's expected on Thursday. Sterling, I'll put up a one-year chart, was way above the multi-year low, which was at 127.99. Commodity markets chart of the day, 8 months later, WTI oil is nearly back to where it started 2016. That's Javier Blas. WTI fell below $40 a barrel in New York for the first time since April, falling into a bear market. It's now 22% below its peak from its June peak, and that's the common definition of a bear market. It's getting a little bit of a rally going just now, but let's see whether it can last. I doubt it. First settlement below the 200-day moving average since April. August 2015, I spoke about the end being nigh for crude oil and oil producers from Caracas to Luanda, from Riyadh to Abuja. And I said they were squealing like pigs. They're about to be served up as rations. Oil-based economies are going to contract. Currencies which have already collapsed are going to be routed. And Greek-style austerity will be the order of the day. The meltdown is coming. I also quoted Kapuscinski, who famously said, if the crowd disperses, goes home, does not reassemble, we say the revolution is over. I said the revolution is only just beginning. The glut strikes back. This is some data from a Bloomberg article, and we've just bounced off the 40 level. Soaring Saudi interbank rates prompt a $4 billion injection. Look how high interest rates have risen. I like these two tweets from Niokos. Package of 100 bid limit order, turning the order flow momentum up, pushing the price higher. And then similarly, when a 50 order appears on the ask depth, forcing the order flow to sell the market. I'll put up a 6-month chart of gold, which is just shy of 1360. My piece over the weekend was about the comeback in emerging markets. Do take a look if you've got a second. Iran weighs a return to the global bond markets after 14 years. Home prices in Hong Kong might drop up to 50%, thinks the FT. Sub-Saharan Africa, given my view on crude oil, and I think it's going to tank further, therefore conditions for the oil producers, in my view, will remain very challenging. Protests continue in the northern Ethiopian region of Amhara, signaling mounting discontent. Demands by the protesters in Gondar city included for Walkite district of Tigray state to become part of Amhara and for an end to alleged Tigrayan domination of the government. That's the ruling party, very Tigrayan based. It's a pressure cooker, and the government only understands the iron fist, unfortunately. DRC government rejects opposition demand for election by year's end. This is Voice of America. The government of the DRC has rejected fresh demands from the opposition that elections be held and President Kabila step down by December 20 of this year. Addressing his supporters in Kinshasa on Sunday, opposition leader Etienne Tshisekedi reportedly said it would be high treason if Kabila did not launch the electoral process by September. Until now, the ANC seemed to be impregnable, said Daryl Glazer. The 104-year-old ruling party could lose control of Johannesburg, the commercial hub, the capital Pretoria, and Port Elizabeth in Wednesday's municipal election. ANC's share of the overall vote will probably slip to 54% from 62% in national ballot, compared to the national ballot 2 years ago. If one is to believe what the polls are detecting, then we're looking at something momentous. The ANC has won more than 60% of the vote in every election since Nelson Mandela led the party to power in 1994, and has shored up its support by increasing access to clean water and electricity, and extending welfare grants to almost a third of the population. ANC losses would fuel calls for Zuma to be ousted before his current presidential term ends in 2019. His approval rating dropped to 21% in February from 33% a year before. So it's going to be a very interesting election to watch. I think, the Rand has rallied in part because the view is that President Zuma's powers are going to be clipped one way or the other. The Rand is, of course, the preeminent Ro proxy. This is risk on, risk off. People put risk on, they buy the Rand. They put risk off, they sell it. Dollar Rand, let me put up a 6-month chart. Back around the 14 level. Key level is 14.10 to 14.20. A lockup period following a previous share sale expires on Tuesday, and Barclays is expected to sell more stock in Barclays Africa. Rivals could overtake Angolan GDP sooner than expected. Of course, that's also to do with the currency. Egyptian EGX 30 up 13.19% this year. Nigerian all-share down 2.79% this year. Ghana Stock Exchange Index down 10.41% this year. Heineken sales slow in Africa as low oil prices curb demand. Second quarter beer volumes dipped 5.9% on an organic basis across Africa, the Middle East and Eastern Europe. Russia and Nigeria are the worst affected, but overall in the region you have more problems than opportunities. This is Van Boxmeer. Things are difficult with less tourists visiting Burundi, the DRC and Egypt, and a consumer shift from Heineken's premium brands to less expensive beers. This is something that EABL foresaw. You saw that in their results. The CEO said on CNBC he's praying for higher oil prices to reinvigorate demand in Africa, the Middle East and Eastern Europe. Have a look at this Africa deals landscape January through July 2016 via Stratling Africa. And I like this, which is unfortunate, but it was a good photograph. AFP, Côte d'Ivoire. A man has been sentenced to 20 years in prison for stealing a sheep. Deacons East Africa listed at the stock exchange this morning. It's an introduction via listing. They're talking of targeting the middle class for regional expansion. Set a target of 60 outlets across East Africa by 2020. The Kenya shilling 101.30, Nairobi all share down 1.91% in 2016, but it's at a 5-week high and boosted by Safaricom's record-breaking run. Safaricom will close at a record high for the 6th consecutive session. Through this morning, it delivered a 27.85% return when you factored in the final and the special dividend. In my piece over the weekend, I said Safaricom has been an outlier, with CEO Bob Collymore presiding over an extraordinary golden age for shareholder value creation during his tenure. Safaricom ranks in the top percentile of value creation for shareholders anywhere in the world. Have a look at the interview I did with Bob after his full year results. Standard Chartered has also had an exceptional year when compared to the rest of the banking sector, which has been soft. And if interest rate caps are introduced, it's going to be a bit softer. Standard Chartered is up 26.61%. When you factor in the final dividend. NSE 20 down 14.36% year to date. This speaks to the dichotomy or bifurcation of the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Over the weekend, the differential was over 1,000 basis points. It's gotten wider. I attended a breakfast hosted by the French ambassador Remy Marichaux on the occasion of the first visit to Kenya of a French Foreign Minister, Jean-Marc Ayrault, for 15 years. Lots of heavyweights in attendance. The EPA was obviously front and center of any discussion. The governor's central bank was pretty forthright, and in attendance he says, we are very confident we have it under control. As I said, Safaricom hit a record high for the 5th consecutive session and will make it a 6th consecutive session today. Other than that, yesterday WPP, it's down, Scan Group is down 50% this year. That's a pretty big drop, notwithstanding some better than expected results. CIC Insurance, which reported a 75% acceleration in first half earnings per share, did not get any upside traction and remains down 30.64% so far this year. Appreciate your support, and remember, if you want to track the stock market in real time for any reason, just register on rich.co.ke, get a password, go to Rich Live, and you can track the stock market in trading hours in real time. Once again, thank you for stopping by.